Imagine that one day the familiar world begins to fray at the edges. It doesn't explode, doesn't shatter all at once, just quietly crumbles like sand slipping through your fingers. You look at the person beside you and see everything except who they once were, as if your reflection no longer exists in their gaze. One evening, one word, one detail, and suddenly your reality is no longer yours. It's not the kind of pain that screams and tears you apart, but something deeper, heavy, like a stone you can't cast away. What do you do when the truth becomes sharper than a blade? When every gesture and word is a reminder of betrayal? When you look into the eyes of someone you trusted and see only a stranger? Sometimes the answer doesn't come right away. Sometimes it stretches through the night, seeps into the silence, fills the emptiness. Sometimes you have to fall apart to find your way back to yourself. Hello, my friend. I'm so glad you stopped by my channel. If it's your first time here, don't forget to subscribe and like this video, as every like truly inspires me. Please tell me which city and country you watch this video from. Now let's get started. You rarely notice the precise moment when your world begins to slip away. It's not a sudden break, more like the quiet unraveling of a thread, pulling loose at the seams. One day everything feels familiar, solid. Then suddenly, it doesn't. For me, the shift began on a Friday evening. Delilah told me she was going out to meet her friends from college. "Just a girls' night," she said with a casual smile, kissing my cheek on her way out. "Don't wait up." But of course I did. I always did. Midnight came and went, then 1 o'clock. I kept glancing at the clock, trying to seem relaxed. By 2, my phone felt like an extension of my hand. I told myself not to worry. I lied. Something wasn't right. At 2:30 a.m., the front door finally creaked open. I was already in the hallway, arms crossed, trying to keep my face neutral. And then I saw her. Delilah looked wrecked. Her hair was a mess. Streaks of mascara lined her cheeks. One of her heels dangled from her fingers. The strap of her dress had slipped off her shoulder. Her eyes avoided mine, glazed, distant. "You all right?" I asked, my voice low. She nodded a little too quickly. "Just tired?" she mumbled. "Can we talk tomorrow?" 100 questions surged to my lips. Where had she been? Who was she with? But I bit them back. I helped her up the stairs instead. When I leaned in to steady her, a strange scent of unfamiliar cologne drifted past me. Something inside me gave way. Still, I stayed quiet. For now. I helped her out of her clothes and pulled the blanket over her. She murmured something as she settled in. Faint, slurred, incomprehensible. She told me it meant nothing. I froze. "What was that?" I asked. But she was already drifting into a heavy, intoxicated sleep. I stood over her for a long time, staring at the woman I once knew, wondering when she'd become a stranger. Morning arrived, spilling light across the kitchen. I hadn't slept. My coffee sat untouched, gone cold hours ago. My thoughts looped around the same phrase from the night before. It didn't mean anything. What didn't? A moment? A lapse in judgment? A betrayal? The weight of it gnawed at me. At exactly 8:13 a.m., I heard her footsteps on the stairs. Delilah emerged, eyes bloodshot, hair tousled, one hand pressed to her temple. She looked unsure, bracing for silence or fury. "Hey," she said softly. I didn't speak, just pointed to the table. Her shoes sat there, scuffed and dirtied, next to the necklace she'd worn. It was broken. One of the beads had split clean in two. I'd found it crushed in her bag, like it had been stepped on or yanked off. She followed my gaze. Her expression shifted. Color drained from her face, then rushed back in. "Luke, I can explain," she began. "I know how it must look." "Do you remember what you said last night?" I cut in. My tone was even, but I felt frozen from the inside out. She blinked, tried to recall. Then she sank into a chair and covered her face with her hands. We went downtown, me, Tabitha, and the usual crew. I drank too much. Honestly, I don't even remember how I got home. Tabitha said I fell near the Uber, she added. Dropped my purse, probably when the necklace broke. I let her talk. What about the dress? I asked. She hesitated, her voice faltering. I don't know. Maybe it ripped when I fell, or someone grabbed me by mistake in the crowd. It was packed. You know how it is when people drink too much. Her words tumbled out quickly, like she was racing to fill every gap before I could widen them. But her eyes never quite met mine. Her hands wouldn't stop moving. She was giving me a version of the night, but I couldn't tell if it was the real one. I didn't push. Not yet. Part of me still clung to the hope that I was wrong, that I was seeing patterns where none existed, that the worst-case scenario was still just a thought, not a truth. But deep down, I felt it. This was only the beginning. The days that followed blurred together. Delilah carried on like everything was fine, like nothing had happened that night. But I hadn't forgotten. Her excuses felt flimsy, the shattered necklace, the torn strap, the vagueness. I said nothing. I waited. Then came Thursday. I got home earlier than usual. My last meeting had been called off. Delilah had mentioned she'd be out running errands, and I thought maybe we'd spend some time together. Grab a bite, catch up, something simple, something steady. But when I pulled into the driveway, her car was already parked. I unlocked the door and stepped into silence, the kind that felt heavy, deliberate. Then I heard soft footsteps above. Laughter followed, light, carefree. Her voice floated down like nothing was broken. I moved toward the stairs, quiet and slow. At the top, I stopped short of the landing. Delilah was in our bedroom. The door was slightly ajar. "Oh my God, Aria, it was insane," she said, laughing without the slightest trace of guilt. Her tone was airy, almost flippant, like nothing that happened could possibly weigh on her. I didn't mean for it to go that way, honestly, but a few drinks in, and it just unfolded. She paused for a beat, her voice dipping, shaded with something dangerous, something exhilarating. "I wasn't expecting him to be that good," she continued, her words thick with memory. It was like he wasn't even human. The way he took charge, the way he moved, it was unreal. He just knew exactly what to do, and when. My jaw clenched so tight I heard a faint crack in my neck. She kept going, oblivious, like she was casually reading off a to-do list. "It was supposed to be a one-time thing," she said, matter of fact. "Just something I needed. Honestly, I've been feeling nothing. For a while." "Luke's great," she added, almost as if she felt obligated to say it. "He really is. But it's like I'm invisible to him now. Anthony sees me, really sees me." And there it was, his name finally out in the open. Anthony. She gave a soft, dreamy laugh. "I already told him I'm coming back tomorrow. Same hotel, same room, same time." Her voice practically hummed with anticipation. "And there's no way I'm missing it." There wasn't even a flicker of remorse, no hesitation. She didn't sound like someone wrestling with a decision. She sounded like someone booking a weekend getaway or talking about a concert she'd waited months to attend. I stood frozen, hands gripping the railing until my knuckles turned white, heart pounding, every word a fresh blow to the chest. My ears started to ring. For a second, I wasn't sure if I was going to stay on my feet. I should have barged in. I should have made her say it to my face instead of whispering it like some giddy confession to her best friend. But I didn't. I turned around and walked back down the stairs. Each step dragged heavier than the one before, because now I knew. And that knowing, the certainty, cut deeper than any fight ever could. This wasn't some accident she regretted. This was a choice, a deliberate path she was continuing to walk. She wasn't tormented, she was glowing. And as I stood at the bottom of the stairs, something inside me hardened. No yelling, no begging for honesty. I would gather every last piece of truth she'd hidden, and I would let it bury her. That night, after she went to bed, I did something I never thought I would. I picked up her phone. She hadn't even changed the passcode. Maybe she thought I didn't have it in me to look. The first thing I saw was a thread labeled A. Anthony. My stomach dropped. I tapped it open. Dozens of messages. They weren't graphic. She was smarter than that. But the meaning was obvious. "You looked incredible that night," he'd written. "I haven't stopped thinking about you." And her reply? "I've been counting the hours. I need tomorrow to come faster." I leaned back, staring at the screen, a hollow ache spreading through my chest. I had to know who this guy really was. His full name was right there in her contacts. A quick search told me everything. Social media painted the rest of the picture. Anthony was married. His wife's name was Ellie. They had 2 kids, a boy and a girl. His page looked like something out of a Hallmark ad. Birthday parties, fishing trips, Halloween costumes. He looked like a man who had it all. And just like Delilah, he was throwing it away behind closed doors. The next evening, she got dressed like she was preparing for something sacred, because to her, that's exactly what it was. I watched from the kitchen as she stood in the hallway mirror, painting on lipstick like war paint. That red blouse? She hadn't worn it in over a year. It clung to her, low-cut and unforgettable. That shirt was for being seen. Her heels echoed with sharp confidence as she crossed the floor. She picked up her purse and tossed out a casual, "Heading out," without even looking at me. "Where you going?" I asked, voice flat as ice. "Girls' night, Tabitha's birthday." The lie rolled off her tongue like she'd practiced it. I nodded slowly. Let the silence stretch. Let her wonder what I was thinking. "Tell her I said happy birthday." She smiled, tight, rehearsed, and walked out like nothing was wrong. I gave it 2 minutes. Then I grabbed my keys and followed. Her taillight slipped into the traffic, and I kept my distance. No sudden moves, no headlights too close. Just the quiet shadow of someone who sees everything. She drove into the city and parked behind a nondescript bar, the kind of place people choose when they don't want to be found. I waited from across the street, engine off. 10 minutes passed. Then a sleek car pulled up. He stepped out like he'd walked off the cover of a magazine. Every detail perfect. His coat, his hair, his posture. He glanced at his phone, checked his surroundings, and leaned against his car like he owned the night. Then she appeared, Delilah, coming down the sidewalk like it was a scene written just for her. She didn't look around, didn't hesitate, just walked right up to him. And there, in the open, they kissed. Like they had every right to. Her arms wrapped around his neck, his hands firm on her waist. No hesitation, no shame. She laughed, carefree and light, as he whispered something in her ear. And her smile, it was the smile of a girl who'd just climbed out her bedroom window and gotten away with it. I lifted my phone and started snapping pictures. One caught their kiss, another froze them mid-embrace. The last showed her staring up at him like he'd just solved every question she'd been carrying. My gut twisted, sick, empty, cold. I kept watching just long enough to see them disappear inside together, moving like they'd done this 100 times before, like they belonged in sync. I didn't follow. I stayed behind the wheel, knuckles white against the steering wheel, jaw locked tight. Part of me burned to march in there, grab him by the collar, and drag him out under the weight of their lie, force her to explain herself in front of strangers. But what would that do? What was I even trying to salvage? A marriage held together by silence and half-truths. A woman who didn't bother to hide the fact that she'd chosen someone else? No, that wasn't strength. That was desperation pretending to be dignity. And I wasn't going to plead for someone who'd already let go long before I knew to hold on tighter. So I drove home. Alone. But I had the evidence. That night, I called a locksmith. Told him I needed the locks changed, no waiting. He came a little after 10, finished quickly. By 11:42, the new locks were in place. I heard the doorknob turn, once, twice. Soft at first, the handle jiggling, a low rattle, then a knock, then a second, louder one. I stayed still. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Her name lit up, Delilah. I let it go dark. She tried again, then again. I let them all ring unanswered. The knocking escalated to pounding. Her fists slammed the door, sharp and desperate. "Luke!" she screamed. "What the hell is this? Open the damn door!" I waited, just long enough for panic to set in. Then I opened it. She looked like the aftermath of a storm. Mascara smeared, hair undone, one shoe in her hand, the other probably lost somewhere between guilt and panic. Her expression flickered between confusion and fury. "What is going on?" she snapped. "Why won't my key work?" I changed the locks. "You did what?" "If you're going to lie to my face without flinching, you don't get to have keys to my home." She froze. "Luke." I pulled out my phone and opened the gallery. Swiped through the photos, her with Anthony, holding hands, locked in a kiss, laughing like I never existed. Her face collapsed in on itself. "So where do we start?" I asked. "The lies? The cheating? Or how you looked me in the eye and told me you were out with the girls?" She didn't say a word, just stared at the screen. "You're finished here," I said, voice flat. "Tomorrow I'm filing for divorce. Your things will be packed and sent to your parents' house." "Luke, wait, please. It's not what you think. No, it's exactly what it looks like. And you made that choice. Now leave." She didn't fight, just turned away, wiping at her face, stumbling back toward her car. She never came back. The next morning, I sat across from a lawyer, laid everything out, and got the process started. That same afternoon, I sent the photos to Anthony's wife, Ellie. She replied in less than an hour, "Thank you for telling me." 2 days later, word came through that Ellie had kicked Anthony out and filed for divorce herself. Delilah tried reaching out. A handful of calls. Long texts filled with excuses, confessions, pleas. I ignored them all. There was nothing left to say. The divorce went through fast. No children, nothing to split. 6 months later, it was over. I heard Delilah had moved in with her sister. Some mutual friends said she tried to get back in touch with Anthony, but he'd shut her out. Maybe his world fell apart harder than hers, or maybe finally he saw her for who she really was. I didn't care either way. I was free. At first, the quiet was sharp. The house didn't feel peaceful. It felt abandoned. But that passed. I started working out again, took a solo trip to the mountains, surrounded myself with real people, the kind who speak plainly, love honestly. I laughed again, slept through the night without waking in anger. I wasn't searching for someone else. I was rediscovering the man I used to be. And I found him. Delilah lost a man who would have gone to war for her. I lost someone who was never truly mine. But I found myself, and in the end, that was everything. This story has come to an end. What's your opinion? Share it in the comments, my friend. And if you like this story, check out other exciting videos on my channel. I'll say goodbye until the next video. See you. Falling in love with an illusion is like building a house out of smoke. You invest, nurture the dream, feel the warmth, but the moment reality blows through, it all vanishes. Rick was used to order, to stability. His life was like a perfectly calibrated security system, simple, reliable, predictable. Until she stormed into his world, bold, fiery, crafted from flames and words. They seemed like perfect opposites, whose collision created something beautiful, or so he thought. Betrayal rarely arrives in dark alleys. More often, it waits in your own living room, disguised as love. And when the truth shoots through you like a cold-blooded sniper, there's only one choice: keep drowning in the lie or drown it yourself. Today, Rick chose the latter, and his silence is about to speak louder than any vows. Hello, my friend. I'm so glad you stopped by my channel. If it's your first time here, don't forget to subscribe and like this video, as every like truly inspires me. Please tell me which city and country you watch this video from. Now let's get started. They say clarity always comes after the fact. A year back, I was certain I had life dialed in. A solid job, a cozy apartment, and a partner I imagined building a future with. I never anticipated the twist. My name's Rick. I'm 34, raised in a small farming town where my parents made their living off the land. They were the type who let their work speak louder than their words, who believed in rising early and only talking when necessary. That's the mindset I grew up with. I stayed focused, kept my head down, and carved out a life that revolved around order and simplicity. I've been in cybersecurity for a logistics company for several years now. It's not flashy work, but it's steady. It keeps the lights on and gives me peace of mind. I never craved extravagance, just consistency, a little quiet at the end of the day, and someone to share it all with. That someone turned out to be Sable. We crossed paths at a corporate event I had no intention of attending. She was everything I wasn't: bold, charismatic, dressed like a magazine cover come to life. People noticed her the moment she entered a room. She carried herself like she belonged on a stage, yet somehow she noticed me, a guy half hidden in the corner. We started chatting, and surprisingly, it clicked. Before long, we were spending a lot of time together. It began the usual way. Dinner dates, drives that stretched past midnight, binge-watching movies. She brought this electricity into my world, and I like to think I gave her a bit of calm in return. Or maybe I just needed to believe that. She made me feel like I didn't have to be anyone else, like I was enough. Looking back, I might have wanted that feeling more than she intended to give it. But in the moment, I didn't second-guess anything. Everything seemed to fall into place quickly. 6 months in, we moved in together. By the time a year passed, I proposed. Sable worked in personal branding, helping clients shape their public image and curate their lifestyles. I never fully grasped what her day-to-day looked like, but she clearly excelled at it. She had this captivating energy, an aura that made people want to listen. She could sell a dream, and for a while, that included our dream. At first, her lively spirit was exhilarating, but gradually it started to wear on me. The little comments began to surface. Harmless at first, but they stuck with me. She'd tease me about my clothes when we went out, saying I looked too plain for someone in tech. She suggested I upgrade my car, implying that driving a Civic gave off the wrong impression. Occasionally, she'd scoff when I talked about my job. One night at dinner, she said, "If you mention firewalls one more time, I'm going to lose my mind." She laughed after, but it hit me harder than I let on. I brushed it off, told myself she was just being candid, that I was reading too much into it. She was confident, blunt, stylish. I figured I was being overly sensitive. When it came time to plan the wedding, she took over. Upscale venue, designer dress, luxury photography, the whole 9 yards. I didn't object. I took on extra work, fixed people's Wi-Fi on weekends, passed up trips. I kept telling myself it was all for her happiness. That's what love's about, isn't it? You stretch, you sacrifice, you show up where they need you. What I didn't realize at the time was that I was the only one doing the reaching. It all unraveled on a Tuesday. Funny how regular days can hold the biggest betrayals. Tuesdays are usually predictable. Routine meetings, inbox cleanups. Nothing unusual. But that particular Tuesday unraveled everything. I had a break between meetings and decided to head home early. Sable had been swamped with wedding stuff, flowers, RSVPs, some disagreement with a vendor I couldn't quite keep up with. I thought I'd do something small to lift her spirits. I picked up her favorite Thai dish on the way home. Didn't text, didn't call. I just wanted to surprise her. Just a quiet gesture to say, "I'm here for you." But the second I stepped inside, something felt off. The apartment was too quiet. No playlist in the background, no TV chatter, not even a podcast. My first guess was she'd fallen asleep. Then I heard her voice, coming from the bedroom, She was on speaker. Her tone was playful, almost flirtatious. I froze halfway down the hall, a sinking feeling urging me to stay put. "He has no clue," she said, laughing. "He's off somewhere playing tech savior for the company." My heart slammed to a stop. I didn't know who she was talking to yet, but her voice said everything. That laugh wasn't the one she used with me. It was sharper, colder. Then came a man's voice, cool, familiar, like they'd had this exchange more than once. His name was Max. "So Thursday's still on?" he asked. "Definitely," she replied. "He's working late. I'll have the whole apartment." I felt the takeout box tilt in my hand. My palms were slick from the condensation, but I stood frozen. My thoughts were a mess, my heart pounding loud enough to drown everything else out. I tried to convince myself it was a joke. Maybe they were acting, teasing about someone else, anything but what it sounded like. But she kept talking. "I mean, I love Rick, sort of. He's reliable, you know." God, he was insufferable. Every time he launched into another monologue about his job, I had to pretend like I cared. Fake smiles, nodding along like I wasn't dying of boredom. Max let out this smug little laugh. Not loud, just a knowing snicker, like this wasn't the first time he'd heard her rant. "What about the wedding?" he asked, eyebrow raised. "Oh, it's still happening," Sable said with a shrug. "You think I'm just gonna eat the cost of that venue? No way. I want the photos. I've been organizing this thing forever." She tossed the words out like she was discussing weekend plans. "I'll deal with the rest later," she added, like it was just logistics. And that did something to me. Broke something, actually. The betrayal, yeah, that crushed me. But what really hit was how casual she sounded. Like none of it carried weight. Like I was irrelevant. It wasn't about us. Not really. It was about ticking boxes. I wasn't her partner, just a placeholder until someone better came along. I didn't burst in, didn't shout or demand explanations. No drama. Just pulled out my phone, hands barely steady, and opened the recorder. Tapped the red button. She kept talking, throwing out flippant remarks. Even joked about maybe inviting Max to the bachelorette party if schedules aligned. Like it was all just entertainment. Like I didn't matter. And then she said something that hit me like a punch to the ribs. "I still think about that last night," she said, grinning. "That hotel suite, the wine, the view, it was perfect, and Rick footed the bill." Then she laughed, loud and careless, like it was an inside joke. I let it go on for a bit longer. My hands were shaking, heart racing. When it was enough, I ended the recording, slid the phone into my pocket, and walked out without a word. The takeout bag was still dangling from my hand when I reached the car. I sat in the driver's seat and just stared ahead. No music, no phone, just silence. Me and the weight of everything I'd just heard. That's when the shift happened. Not in some explosive argument or late-night confrontation. Right there, in that parked car with dinner cooling in my lap, I realized the truth. She never really loved me. To her, I was a convenience, a bank account, a body to stand next to in pictures. I didn't blow up right then. God knows I wanted to. Every time I looked at her, I had to fight the urge to scream. But I knew how it would play out. Tears, excuses, spinning the story until I was the villain. No, I didn't want noise. I wanted clarity, something undeniable. So I waited. The days that followed were brutal. I acted the part. Went to work, came home, kissed her like nothing was wrong. Every "I love you" from her felt like a lie wrapped in sugar. Behind the scenes, I was preparing. Saved the audio in 3 places. Printed out phone records. Cross-referenced her calendar with nights she was working late. It wasn't just Thursdays. Talked to my friend Kyle. He'd gone through hell with his ex. "She doesn't deserve your silence," he told me. "If she made this mess, she should have to sit in it." And that's when the idea sparked. The engagement party, her pride and joy. Chic rooftop venue downtown. Gourmet catering, DJ, professional photographer. All her idea. It's going to be iconic, she said. A statement. The start of our forever. That was the caption under one of our posts. I smiled, nodded. Let her run the show. But now, it meant something else entirely. Her people would all be there. Friends, family, colleagues, the ones she was always trying to impress. She thought it was her big moment. I decided it was mine. I arrived late, deliberately. She was already in her element. Black dress hugging every curve, bold red lipstick, wine glass in hand, basking in the attention. I walked in wearing jeans and a plain tee that read, "Trust is earned." She spotted me instantly, blinked. "Rick, what are you wearing? Are you okay?" I didn't answer, just made my way to the mic beside the DJ and gave it 2 taps. "Evening, everyone," I said. "Sorry to break up the fun. I just have a quick message about the woman I was going to marry." Sable froze mid-smile, eyes darting around the room. Her mom was mid-toast. "Sable is stunning, smart, driven." I paused. "Very, very driven. And for the last few months she's also been having an affair with a guy named Max." A wave of gasps swept through the crowd. Murmurs rippled. Glasses clinked in confusion. I raised my phone and hit play. Her voice echoed through the speakers. "I still think about that last night. The hotel, the wine, the view, it was perfect. And Rick paid for all of it." Silence. Someone dropped a fork. Sable rushed toward me, panic written all over her face. "Rick, stop it! What are you doing?" I turned to her, calm, unshaken. "I'm doing what you never could," I said, telling the truth. And then I turned back to the room. There was no ceremony, no ring, and no more facade. I stood in front of everyone, expressed my gratitude for their presence, apologized for the harsh way the truth had unfolded, and then I walked away. Just like that. In the days that followed what was supposed to be our engagement celebration, life felt like standing in the eye of a storm, strangely still, yet surrounded by wreckage. I ignored every one of Sable's calls. She wouldn't let up. Call after call, piling up in my voicemail. Then came the texts. Endless blocks of text filled with rationalizations and flimsy half-apologies. According to her, I'd misunderstood everything. Nothing had happened with Max, she claimed. It was all just talk. She chalked it up to wedding pressure, said she hadn't meant any of it, and insisted she was merely venting. Then came the classic deflection. "I was only joking. Don't you know me better than that?" I refused to reply. Not one word. That's when her tone shifted. Her messages became sharp, her voicemails seething with anger, laced with sobs, accusations, venom. "You humiliated me in front of everyone. You ruined everything, Rick. You're cruel and spiteful. You could have handled this differently." The speed with which she turned from guilt to fury was dizzying. I cut off all contact, blocked her number, changed the locks on my door, reset every password she might have remembered. I wasn't about to give her a single way back in. The fallout hit her like a freight train. Sable had spent years crafting her image. She was the expert in appearances, the branding queen, the woman with the storybook life, perfect partner, perfect plans. But that illusion collapsed in a heartbeat. Clients started dropping her. Her polished persona cracked. Even her business partner, Rebecca, messaged me out of nowhere. "You did what most people only dream of doing. You exposed who she really is." And then there was her sister, who reached out too. "I always had a feeling," she admitted. "I hate that it happened like this, but I'm not surprised." Those words stuck with me, because in truth, this was never about revenge. It wasn't retaliation. I'd simply reached my limit with pretending. I needed honesty to mean something, even if it made people uncomfortable. For too long, I'd minimized myself, as if I needed to prove I was worthy of standing next to her. But that night, at that party, I reclaimed the dignity I had been slowly handing over. And she was left alone with the mess she'd made. No rebranding, no spin, no carefully worded apology to win sympathy. Just silence. It's been 6 months. Do I miss her? Sometimes. But not her exactly. More like the version of her I once believed in. I loved the picture we painted together. The dream of us, more than the reality of her. I heard she tried to give things a shot with Max after everything fell apart. Didn't last long. Word is, he bailed after a few weeks. Apparently, commitment wasn't really in his wheelhouse. That part didn't catch me off guard. What did surprise me was this. I sleep through the night now. I laugh without holding back. I speak about my work without downplaying it. I pull up in my beat-up old Civic without a second thought. I'm not looking to date. Mostly, I'm focusing on rebuilding trust in myself. And if there's one lesson this whole experience carved into me, it's this: trust the subtle discomfort. Pay attention to those tiny moments that don't sit right. Listen to how someone speaks about you when they think you're not paying attention. Because love, real love, isn't about the picture-perfect moments, the fancy nights out, or the flawless social media feed. It's built on respect, and once that's broken, no amount of effort, apology, or longing can fix what's already gone. This story has come to an end. What's your opinion? Share it in the comments, my friend. And if you liked this story, check out other exciting videos on my channel. I'll say goodbye until the next video. See you? Greetings, my dear viewer. You're on the channel The Price of Cheating. The channel is for those who appreciate traditional family values and condemn adultery. So be sure to subscribe to the channel. Let's get started. Michael, don't forget about tonight's banquet, my wife exclaimed, her voice rising as she hurried out the door. This is very important for my career, I reassured her. Don't worry, I'll be there. After finishing my porridge, I put the dishes in the sink and put my mobile phone on the table, a symbol of my intention to disconnect for a while. I rushed upstairs and changed out of my work suit for comfortable golf clothes. After throwing my clubs and shoes in the car, I went to meet a couple of old friends at a picturesque golf course about 100 miles from the city. We had an appointment at 11:30 p.m., and a crisp autumn day promised to be perfect for a round of golf. Some events in life are simply priceless. We finished the game around 3:30 p.m. and headed to the clubhouse, where laughter and camaraderie reigned. It's been a long time since I've seen Anthony and Elliot, my two college buddies, and our reunion was a great success. We had a hearty dinner, reminisced about the past, and shared stories that were as fresh as an autumn breeze. The fun was so contagious that we decided to make a few more holes before it got dark. "That was fantastic!" exclaimed Anthony, wiping sweat from his forehead when we were done. "Do you have to hurry, or can you join us for another drink, Michael?" I chuckled. Am I ever going to give up a drink, especially from such a generous loser? "Let's go to the local bar." We settled into our favorite bar, sipping cold beers and telling stories about our glory days. I was amazed at how much I enjoyed myself and how much I would like to see Anthony and Elliot more often. But as I approached the house, a threatening cloud began to hang over my good mood. I had already imagined how a storm would break out in my relationship with Elizabeth. Imagining her fury, I giggled to myself at the absurdity of my thoughts. She will undoubtedly be waiting for me. "Where the hell did you go?" she will demand as soon as I enter the door. When I finally entered the living room, her words rang out in full voice. "I told you that this banquet is very important to me. You should have been home by 6. "I'm sorry, my love. My boss sent me on business. There were terrible traffic jams, and so I just got back," I replied, trying to keep my tone light. "You know, I talked to Jeffrey. He was at home at 7:30. According to him, you took time off from work, and you left your cell phone on the kitchen table so I couldn't reach you." Elizabeth raised her voice with each accusation. "You're a terrible liar and a lousy lover." "Well, since we've figured it out, I give up, dear," I said with a tired smile. "I'm exhausted." "Is it decided?" "What's been decided?" she snapped, her eyes flashing with indignation. By this point, Elizabeth was tired of playing charade. "You're lying to me, Michael. Will you try to tell the truth for once?" I sighed, preparing for the wild fairy tale that had become my reality. "Okay, let's get started. I was kidnapped along with the car by a gang of pirates. They took me to some dilapidated warehouse, planning to hold me for ransom. But then aliens appeared out of nowhere, dragged me onto their plane, and began to probe me. Well, Let's just say they were especially interested in my teeth, eyes, and other sensitive areas. Elizabeth stared at me with an expression of disbelief on her face. Do you think I'll believe that? Honestly, it's true. As soon as they left me alone, I managed to free myself from the ropes that bound me. And then the real tests began. It was necessary to understand how to control their spacecraft. Anyway, I accidentally landed in an unknown place. From there, I had to hitchhike to my car with a truck driver. But I feel surprisingly good, just a little tired. Elizabeth's expression changed from disbelief to pure disappointment. It seemed like it was about to explode. Michael, what are you talking about? Stop talking nonsense. Do you even realize how much that banquet meant to me? I was promoted and you were supposed to be my +1. It was very awkward to show up without you. I actually played golf with Anthony and Elliot, my old college buddies, I admitted, waving off her outrage. At first they had me at gunpoint, but on the 7th hole I smashed them 30 feet. I've been on a roll ever since. Is this a new putter? It's just a masterpiece. I swear I'm hitting 300 yards. Playing golf? Elizabeth repeated, disbelief in her voice. You knew how important this dinner was to me and you decided to play golf instead? Did you really plan everything in advance? I didn't mean to hurt your feelings, so I cheated a little. I thought maybe you wouldn't find out, I confessed, trying to justify myself. I don't recognize it? Do you think I won't notice the empty chair next to me? Elizabeth fired back, her anger palpable. Why did you decide that I wouldn't be offended by your absence from such an important event? You should have known what it meant to me. After pausing, I realized the depth of my mistake. If you look back, I probably should have seen this coming, I muttered, still overwhelmed by the whirlwind of emotions bubbling between us. At that moment, I felt exciting and undeniably different. Events were unfolding in a whirlwind, and the last thing I wanted to do was hurt you. It's just golf, I thought, nothing personal. Are you out of your mind? Or did you and your old buddy overdo it a little bit, Michael? Elizabeth replied, her eyes narrowed. You sound like you're in another universe. To be honest, I'm too exhausted to deal with your selfish antics today. You can spend the night in one of the old children's rooms, she continued, her voice cold and distant. Don't even think about touching me or talking to me for a while. No problem, dear, I replied, dropping to an exaggerated whisper. I'll be as quiet as a mouse. Elizabeth stared at me as if I were some kind of strange creature she had never encountered before. Heading to Kevin's room, I couldn't help but chuckle. After 24 years of marriage and 2 college kids, Elizabeth and I were sailing the uncharted waters of an empty nest. I settled into Kevin's bed and dozed off, while the events of the day repeated themselves in my head like a broken record. When morning came, I was getting dressed for work, reading the newspaper and eating cereal when Elizabeth came into the room with an expression of irritation and determination. Be careful, Michael, don't think I've dealt with you, she warned, her voice firm. You still have a lot to do if you hope to catch up on yesterday. And just so you know, I'll be working late tonight so you can start your penance by cooking dinner for yourself. Of course, honey, I replied, trying not to strain myself. I'll do fine. Have a good time. What do you mean, have a good time? She pressed, raising her eyebrows. Have a great day. Be happy. Don't worry about me. And beware of wooden nickels, I added with a casual shrug. After giving me a look that could curdle milk, she turned on her heel and went to work. I picked up the phone and called the office, pretending to be sick to get a day off. This morning started with an impromptu shopping trip. In the store, I came across the main temptation, the largest flat-screen TV imaginable. I couldn't resist and immediately ordered it with same-day delivery. By the evening, everything was ready, and I leaned back in my chair to watch the news. The female presenter looked so real that I tried to look into her cleavage, confident that she was right here in the room with me. The living room was dominated by the TV, a colossal presence blocking access to the closet, but it was worth every penny. I called a few friends from work, invited them to the opening of the World Series, and ordered pizza and ribs at one of the local establishments. During the 3rd goal, Elizabeth came into the room, and her expression was priceless. Completely amazed, she stood speechless. Harry's accountant, as opportunistic as ever, jumped to his feet to greet her. Congratulations on the improvement. "This TV is simply amazing. The old man is lucky to have a wife like you," he exclaimed, and his enthusiasm echoed through the room. Elizabeth's confused gaze darted between me and the game, and I couldn't help but grin, feeling a mixture of mischief and triumph. "Thank you." Elizabeth paused, a note of uncertainty in her voice. "I'm really tired, so I'll leave you to watch the game and go to bed." "What's the matter?" To my surprise, she seemed to take the news calmly. I wondered how furious she would be in the morning. I was already dressed for work, sipping coffee and looking through the morning newspaper, when Elizabeth burst into the kitchen. "Get that damn thing out of here and get back to the store before I get back from work tonight. Michael, can you hear me?" "I hear you, dear," I replied with a playful grin. "Don't shout, I'm not deaf." When the door slammed shut, its frame shook as if the glass might break. Sometimes it was hard to keep up with her. That evening, I was sitting comfortably before the game when Elizabeth burst into the living room. "I thought I asked you to return this thing today," she began, raising her voice. "In response, you said that you heard me and that I didn't need to raise my voice. And so I come home, and she's still here? What part of it didn't you understand, you idiot?" To be honest, I didn't get it. To be honest, I've never understood how attractive Norm is in this show. He's not even that funny. Indignation turned her face crimson, and foam and saliva almost gushed out of her mouth. "Michael, hear me. I wanted you to return the TV, but you didn't." "I didn't buy this thing to return it, dear." I couldn't help but smile. "I like him, and I'm going to keep him." I leaned back, enjoying the moment. "I understood every word you said this morning. In fact, the fact is that I just decided not to follow your orders, and nothing more." A look of disbelief appeared in Elizabeth's eyes. "What's happened to you lately, Michael? First you miss an important event under some ridiculous pretext, and then you immediately order this huge, certainly expensive TV without even discussing it with me. Are you all right?" There was a note of genuine concern in her voice. "I feel great, dear. Thank you for the question." I chuckled softly. "If I had told you about the TV, you would have refused right away. It was easier for me that way. No need to argue, no need to worry. And the great thing is, it doesn't hurt anyone. Except for me, of course." "Besides you, Michael?" she asked incredulously. But I grinned. "No one, dear. Just me." "I'm in terrible pain," snarled Elizabeth, her displeasure palpable. "It really annoys me. The thing is just too big for this room. I can't even put a vacuum cleaner in here. As a result, you spent a fortune on something that wasn't even suitable for our house and didn't even think to consult me. Why do you believe that it won't hurt anyone? You know, when you say that, it's like you don't understand anything. I can't just do what makes me happy without thinking about how it will affect you." "Really, Michael? You've never done anything like this before? So why do I have to teach you the same thing all the time?" asked Elizabeth, desperation creeping into her voice. "You're acting like a narcissistic boy." "Yes, I know you're right," I admitted, feeling the weight of her words. "I'll return the TV on Monday," I offered weakly. "I'd like you to do it tomorrow," she insisted. "I have to work for a few hours in the afternoon." "Working on a Saturday is frustrating, of course, but it's thanks to her that I got a promotion," Elizabeth reasoned, her tone softening a little. "Please, just make sure he's gone by the time I get back tomorrow night." "Of course," I nodded, but my thoughts flowed in different directions. I stared at the TV, lost in thoughts of the star of my daydreams. On Saturday afternoon, I decided to call Elizabeth's parents and invite them to lunch. When I arrived at the cafe, I introduced them to Barbara Wright, who was already waiting for me. Barbara looked exhausted, and I wondered how she was coping. Meanwhile, Elizabeth's parents seemed much more interested in the free lunch I was giving them than in anything else. At about 3 o'clock, we followed Barbara to her house and parked at the entrance. Barbara received us in her beautifully decorated living room, but the atmosphere quickly changed when she approached the security console. After a few quick taps, the room erupted into a cacophony of sirens warning all intruders to flee. The sudden noise sent chills down our backs. Before we could react, the front door burst open, and Barbara's husband, Robert, jumped out with a bat at the ready. The man was completely naked, Confusion and adrenaline mixed in his behavior. He didn't recognize me or Elizabeth's parents and swung the bat in our direction with wild eyes. "Get out of here before I knock your brains out!" he shouted, panic and aggression mixed in his voice. There was tension in the room, and we all froze, caught off guard. "Go to the devil!" he shouted, pulling the bat back as if preparing to swing. For a moment, I thought about giving it to him. Then a shrill scream shattered the tension. "What are you doing here?" Elizabeth's parents turned away from the sight of the naked baseball player, their gazes fixed on Elizabeth, who was standing in the doorway, clutching a sheet to her body, shock and embarrassment reflected on her face. "I invited them to have some fun, Mrs. Nelson," Barbara interjected, walking into the room with a mischievous twinkle in her eyes. Robert was not very secretive about his affairs, and I had suspicions as soon as I told him that I would be coming over for the weekend. I even thought it would be you, Mrs. Nelson, considering how cozy he was with you at the banquet last night. Nodding politely to Elizabeth's parents, I was still trying to make sense of the scene unfolding in front of me. Walking up to Barbara, I shook her hand, then turned my attention to Elizabeth's boss, Robert, and only then did I meet Elizabeth's gaze. "You know what? There's a game tonight, and I'm not going to miss it on my big screen. When you're done here, you'll take your parents home." "Right. Elizabeth?" I added, raising an eyebrow. "I think they won't mind. Give me a minute to grab some things during the commercial, although the TV is banned." As soon as the match was over, I gathered Elizabeth's clothes and carried them into the living room. When Elizabeth entered the room, her face expressed a mixture of defiance and despair as she examined the pile of her belongings. "Michael, don't do this, please. It was just a novel and nothing more. I never wanted you to get hurt." "You shouldn't have found out." "Why didn't I notice this empty chair?" I snapped, pointing out the glaring absence. "This marriage meant everything to me, and you just left him for an affair." "But I love you, not him at all," she pleaded, despair filling her voice. "Perhaps this is really the case. Or maybe not," I replied, my heart pounding wildly from the weight of her words. "It doesn't make any sense now, does it? When I decided to play golf during that big event that meant so much to you, you were furious. Those were your words, not mine. But isn't sleeping with the boss worse than making a couple of holes, Elizabeth? I'm the only one who really suffers." "But you have no idea, Michael. Dad threw a torrent of humiliation at me. They think I'm some kind of desperate girl, and now I can't even work with Robert." "Shouldn't we forget about my little indiscretion?" Elizabeth pleaded, her voice trembling with despair. "Your affair with another man? This can be ignored," I replied, keeping my tone even. Soon, tears flowed down her cheeks as I continued. "Lies, betrayal, broken trust. These are the real obstacles. You've been getting a taste of this pain from me lately. It's unbearable to coexist with such a person, isn't it? Take your things with you, Elizabeth. My lawyer will contact you on Monday. You can keep it, but you're not welcome here anymore. Forgiving cheater." Our marriage was broken into small pieces. Just like Bradley, thanks to our prenuptial agreement, she was left with what she came into our marriage with. I didn't just make her family hate her, I left this woman with nothing. Now she's officially broke. This concludes the story. If you like it, then put your powerful like and subscribe to the channel.